Russia is preparing to send crude oil and fuel cargoes to Cuba after Donald Trump choked off Havana's oil supplies. A diplomat from the Russian embassy in Cuba told Izvestia newspaper that supply of crude and oil products was expected from Russia to Cuba in the near future as humanitarian aid.
Cuban airports are reporting that by tomorrow, fuel for aircraft and airlines will run out. So we'd like to know if there's any clarity on how our tourists will be evacuated from the island.
The situation in Cuba is truly critical. We are well aware of this, and through diplomatic and other channels, we are maintaining intensive contacts with our Cuban friends. Indeed, let's just say, the suffocating tactics from the U.S. bring many difficulties for the country. We are discussing with our Cuban friends possible ways to resolve these problems, at least providing all possible assistance.
According to a Reuters report, the newspaper claimed that Moscow last sent oil to Cuba in February 2025, delivering 100,000 metric tons. Fuel shortages and blackouts have intensified in Cuba as the nation struggles to import oil for its power plants and refineries. In late January, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened any nation that sold oil to Cuba with tariffs as Washington stepped up efforts to pressure the island's communist government to make economic and political reforms.
Cuba is right now a failed nation, and they don't even have jet fuel to get for airplanes to take off. They're clogging up their runway. We're talking to Cuba right now, and Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now. And they should absolutely make a deal because it's truly a humanitarian threat. And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans, and they're going to be very happy when they're going to be able to go back and say hello to their relatives and do things that they should have been allowed to do for a long time. I'm very interested in the people that are here that were treated so badly by Castro and the Cuban authorities. They have been treated horribly. So we'll see how it all turns out. But Cuba and us, we are talking. In the meantime, there's an embargo, there's no oil, there's no money, there's no anything.
If a deal isn't made, would you consider an operation like the one in Venezuela?
I don't want to answer that. Why would I answer that if I was? It wouldn't be a very tough operation, as you can figure. But I don't think that'll be necessary.
Cuba's president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, earlier said that the country was moving to secure foreign cooperation and implement plans to meet energy demand.
We will overcome this together with creative resistance, with effort, commitment, and the decision to continue collaboration and cooperation with Venezuela. And that's what we could say in general has been produced in terms of supportive rhetoric. But behind those words, there's more. Things we also cannot openly explain today because the enemy is persecuting every opportunity that could open up for Cuba, every path that could open up for Cuba. But I can assure you with a full sense of responsibility that Cuba is not alone. And that at a moment such as this, there are many people, governments, countries, institutions, and companies who are willing to work with Cuba and who have already made their intentions known to us.
I would like to know specifically if you would be willing to engage in discussions with the United States.
Cuba is willing to engage in a dialogue with the United States, a dialogue on any of the issues that one wishes to debate or discuss. What are the conditions without any pressure? Under pressure, it is simply not possible to have a dialogue without any kind of preconditioning whatsoever, in a position where we are all truly equals, in a position of absolute respect for our national sovereignty, for our complete independence, and for our fundamental self-determination from Latin America and the Caribbean. The threats emerging within the region, and particularly those directed towards Cuba, meant that one of the fundamental priorities we established was to implement a comprehensive defense preparation plan, all in the vital interest of what is known as the war of all the people. It includes the preparation of our country's entire territorial defense system at all its levels, from the defense zone, the municipality, the province, up to the National Defense Council of the FARC, regular units and MININTI, public transport, the operation of hospitals of all types of institutions, the school.
Meanwhile, Russia's Civil Aviation Authority confirmed that 2 major Russian airlines are now prioritizing evacuation flights after severe jet fuel shortages left aircraft unable to refuel on the island.
This is no ordinary travel disruption. This is a full-scale repatriation operation unfolding in real time as Russia scrambles to bring thousands of its citizens home from a Cuba gripped by an aviation fuel crisis. Moscow's Civil Aviation Authority has confirmed that 2 major Russian airlines are now prioritizing evacuation flights after severe jet fuel shortages left aircraft unable to refuel on the island. What began as logistical difficulty has escalated into an urgent extraction effort. Rossiya Airlines, owned by Aeroflot, has revised its entire flight schedule to ensure the evacuation of Russian tourists currently stranded in Cuba. Nordwind Airlines has followed suit, suspending regular services and operating one-way return flights out of Havana, Varadero, Holguin, and Cayo Coco. Officials cite difficulties with refueling aircraft in Cuba as the driving force behind the dramatic shift. Without reliable jet fuel supplies, airlines cannot guarantee outbound and return operations, forcing them to pivot entirely towards repatriation. The Russian Union of Travel Industry estimates that at least 4,000 Russian tourists are currently in Cuba. For many, holidays have abruptly transformed into uncertainty as airports struggle to sustain international departures. Cuban aviation authorities warned earlier this week that jet fuel would not be available at international airports for up to a month. The announcement effectively triggered a countdown for foreign carriers to extract their nationals before operations grind to a halt. Russia's response has been swift and strategic. Rossiya has organized multiple one-way flights to Moscow and confirmed that all operations to Cuba will be suspended by late February. Refunds are being offered, but the immediate priority is clear: get Russian citizens home. Nordwind Airlines has adopted a similar approach, focusing solely on outbound evacuation flights from resort hubs popular with Russian tourists. The message from Moscow is unmistakable: safety and return come first. The crisis is rooted in a deepening energy shortfall on the island. Cuba's reliance on imported oil has left it exposed, and the halt in Venezuelan supplies earlier this year has intensified the strain. As jet fuel reserves dry up, the aviation sector has become one of the first visible casualties. Canadian airlines, including Air Canada, WestJet, and Air Transat, have also cancelled services and deployed empty aircraft southbound to retrieve passengers. But Russia's coordinated repatriation stands out for its scale and urgency. For Cuba, the implications are severe. Tourism is a lifeline for the island's economy, and the sudden withdrawal of international carriers threatens to compound an already fragile financial landscape. For Russia, however, the priority remains singular and immediate: extract its citizens, stabilize the situation, and reassess routes only when fuel security is restored. Amid repatriation of Russian tourists from Cuba, U.S. President Donald Trump bluntly declares that Havana is now a failed state under mounting pressure.